okay, that's kind of also the inspiration of me. You know what? Let me teach him how to brand, because that's what I did for 7 years. But now that I don't do that anymore, let me actually take what I learned and teach business owners. So when you get a logo, what I coach you through and I do for you is.
Now growing up, I just want to say that I want to repay you guys by helping everybody else, the family.
It's okay, Jimmy. You know we love you.
Hello, and Yajong. Welcome to The Pieces again. Tonight we have a special guest. His name is Bert Lee. Welcome to the show, Bert Lee.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, Jer and Tu. I'm so happy to be here. I know we're just briefly chatting, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out, Bert.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And thank you to our audience too, the ones that tune in, the one that follow, and whenever we say like and comment, you guys always like and comment and help to share too. Thank you very much. And tonight, Bert's going to be talking about, building your brand. We'll be asking Bert the questions about building his brand. And I know that he's got a summit coming up, so we'll be talking about that as well. And it's called BrandVault Summit.
Yes.
And you want to give a little bit of information on that and touch base on it a little bit before we go in on that?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So the BrandVault Summit is being hosted by me and Christian Yang, Pure Growth. We found two amazing presenters too, Elizabeth Yang and Nini Zhang. So the BrandVault Summit is to help entrepreneurs and business owners leverage social media, because I worked with clients of mine who don't really understand marketing, branding, content creation, and also social selling, which is selling online. So me and Christian really want to bring a conversation surrounding that for our Hmong entrepreneurs and business owners. So that's what the BrandVault Summit is there. But it's also catered to any new entrepreneurs, right? You don't have to be Hmong. But then we wanted this roster to also represent that you don't have to go to a big agency that, are different backgrounds, but your own people, your own community. You guys have experts too, and those two that we brought on are those experts. Me and Christian has been doing our thing for about 6+ years, and then we want to bring it together. So the BrandVault Summit is really learning more about branding, marketing, social media. Come on September 16th, the BrandVault Summit. It's gonna be amazing, and we're gonna have great conversations on how to show up online consistently too.
Yes, sir. And I know that you guys might be questioning some of this. I know me and Johnny were too, and then we were talking over this a little bit. We're like, we need this so much, right, John?
Definitely need it.
Even for our podcast, that's one thing too. Just for even our own personal branding, that too,
Exactly.
and even for, future business ideas, that too. You're building that, you're obtaining the skills necessary to launch whatever you need. I mean, even if it's you're not trying to handle it yourself, maybe you'll have that information and you know what is required for the people you're trying to employ and stuff like that.
And one thing I want to plug too is that before the era of social media, everyone wanted to learn how to start a business. So they had to learn how to write a business plan, how to start an LLC, right? And all the old business is very like old school, meaning paper, business cards, letterheads, all those. We want to learn how to write a contract and lawyer up. Yeah. So those, I feel like we already have those resources and we know enough. But then now the new era is digital.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of you guys have attended a lot of conferences to talk about how to start a business, how to write a business plan, how to write a contract. But now you need to know how to write a social post.
Yes, sir.
How to show online, how to create content. This is the new era, guys. It's happening fast. And this is why the summit is there for that too. Just a little plug right there.
Yeah, I agree.
Be sure to keep up with the trend too.
Yeah, so a little bit about the pieces here before we really take a deep dive in here, right? The pieces we're trying to, if you think about a picture that needs to get painted, right? Was like so many things we need in our life. And Johnny and me is like, man, there's so many great people out there that's already doing this. Let's just bring them on to the show And if they're willing to talk about it, hear their story out and how they did it and how they got there. So that's what the pieces is. Our mission and goal is to just, bring a light, be open-minded, be if there's information that you need, ask them on the comments, stuff like that too. So we're all just trying to, the quote that we always go by is Hmong Life, American Dream. It's hard. And then you try to adapt that American society into your life too. It's hard. So that's why it's called the pieces. Hmong Life, American Dream. So let's jump into this with Bert Lee again here, our guest here. And he's going to talk a lot about how he brands. And one thing he has here is your brand, your lifestyle, and your strategy. I thought that stuck to me too, because everybody's unique in their different ways, right, Bert? And so you could check out Bert's website here. It's called www.bertleespeaks.com, and I'll link it down below in the YouTube here. Bert has a creative. He also does creative business coaching. He's also a speaker. He does some dancing too, right, Bert?
Oh, yeah.
And does some content creation. So if you guys looking forward to any of this talk and what we're going to talk about here, tune in and we'll listen to some more of what Bert is bringing onto the table here. So Bert, a little bit about your background history here. What got you into this content creation state and being a creative business coach, speaker, and dancer? Like, what got you to that stage?
Yeah. I hate to do the gotta go back to, when I was a kid, but it really just stemmed from my dad. So I see that you guys have our traditional ducking. So my dad actually makes our ducking as well. So he makes them. So as a little kid, I've always seen my dad crafting nicha ducking and, making those, selling those. And he's also itutisaya. So he's one of the main singers, and he knows the old songs. Yeah. He was so involved in many things with the funerals, the weddings. He's also one of our Lee clan leaders. Not anymore now, he's old, but when he was young, he was. I see my dad dabbling in so many different creative stuffs, especially with language, speaking. And then that's kind of where I kind of, now that I'm older, I reflect back a lot of the things that I do actually reflect what my dad does. So how I got into speaking, designing, dancing, and content creation was I wanted to be more than just a graphic designer working my 9 to 5 when I got that dream job, right? So I was like, I even asked myself, is this it? I felt like my life was boring, even though I'm working my dream job. I'm like, this is boring. I'm not getting juiced up. I'm not feeling motivated. And then when I started to dabble into, rediscovering myself through dance, and then when I started to get involved with community, I started hosting dance battles. I started to get involved into my own design community. So I started to host like portfolio reviews for college students. And when I started to do juggle 3 things, I actually felt more inspired, because I know some people get exhausted, but now I've learned that I actually, if I focus on one thing, I lose interest within a week, or I lose motivation. So I need to stimulate my brain by, okay, today I'm working on my design, and tomorrow speaking, and the next day I'm gonna do content creation, and then every Thursday I go to dance. So that's kind of how I got into where I am today. Just very high level is I feel like I need to stimulate my brain in multiple activities instead of just one, because I feel like if I do just one, I get bored fairly fast. Right.
When did you learn that, Bert? I know it's hard to juggle a lot of stuff too. I mean, even for me right now, I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, but there's always those concrete things that you're gonna have to do every day, day in and day out. Because I have 5 kids, so juggling that is like, man, I got to focus on the podcast, got to focus on my kids, and then you got work, all of that. Like, when did you know that, okay, this is my concrete schedule, I'm going to work on this, and this turned me into something that is going to build my future?
I didn't know until I would say 2 to 3 years ago, because it was a lot of trial and error. I remember my senior year in college, I was the public relations for our Hmong club. And then I was the vice president for our design club, graphic design club. And I was also running a at that time we were trying to become a nonprofit, but a working board outside of school as b-boys, where we would host dance battles and charities. So I was involved with three big things. I was very ambitious, and I felt that I could do it all. So I did it. And the thing was that I was so stressed and my grades were so bad. So then by the time I was on my spring semester, I was like, okay, I have to give up a whole bunch of stuff. So I gave up my board position at the home club. I kept my design position as a vice president. I kept my outside community work. I kept that. So it was like a lot of stress, a lot of exhaustions and hard work, and a lot of bridges burned too. And we don't have to jump to that, but it was a lot of trial and error. I didn't even know that I like doing multiple stuffs until I was a point in my stage where when I did get my job and I stopped doing all of my extracurricular activities, that I found out that I feel bored. And I feel like, why was it that in college I was so stimulated, right? It was because I was doing so many things. So I'm like, you know what, let me try it again. And I tried it again, and then I was like, yeah, I think I have to do more than one thing. So that's kind of how I learned that I could do more than one thing, and I can also focus on other projects. But I've learned that my max is probably 3. So right now I'm doing 3 big things. So I feel like if I do more than that, I'm gonna just exhaust myself. So
I know I get you when you're talking about college and doing all that, because I went to college too. So I know what that balanced life is like in college. And I know after I had kids, it's like you tend most of your time to your kids, and then you forget about yourself and all the goals and visions and ambitions you used to have. And so now that my kids they're not that old. The oldest is 9, the youngest is a 1. But then you learn to have balance back in your life again when your kids are going back to school and stuff like that, and you have more time for yourself, and you're like, how do I build myself now, and how do I build my business and stuff like that.
Well,
so
one
it's
thing,
hard to balance those.
One thing I want to add to that too is that when I was out of college, I was busy thinking that I can achieve this role, do this so many things, and I found out that through depression and through life coaching, that at the end of it all, not at the end of the day, but at the end of it all, I was working for, I didn't know why I was working so hard for. I was like, why am I working so hard? I don't know. And then when I finally healed, I see my family, I see my nieces, my nephews, and I'm like, why am I working so hard for, man? I should just enjoy the presence. So you talking with your kids, it's very important because there was a point in time I'm like, I'm building this thing for me, but I don't know who is it for. Is it for my kids? If it's for my kids, I don't even have a girlfriend at that time. So how will I know if it is for my kids?
So,
or like,
so no kids yet. Then.
Right, no kids yet. But girlfriend now, but no kids yet. So it's kind of like at that time I had no idea why I was stressing out. I was like emotional, exhausted. I was depressed, right? I was doing for nothing until I healed and had to cut back a lot of stuff, but that took a lot of healing. So that just wanted to add that. Make sure you know why you're working so hard for.
Talk a little about depression. How'd you coach your way out of that? Because us moment, it's difficult at times, and it seems like you overcame it. So how did you overcome that depression mode and get rid of all the negativity? And
it wasn't easy. So I was blessed to grow up, to have 7 sisters, and I have 2 older brothers. But I have a lot of uncles who are from overseas, who freshly did the new wave. They've been here for about, I say, 10 years now. But then, because they're also heavy drinkers, and then from overseas, because so we just accumulate, right? So. And my dad is not very expressive. My 2 older brothers are not expressive, so I was taught to be, very masculine and not emotional. But then because I am the youngest son and my sister babied me, they actually helped groom me to be expressive, right? They taught, and I see my 7 sisters, so I was actually with them more. So I guess I've attracted a little bit more of the feminine energy, and not so much of my brother and my uncle's masculine energy. But who I hang out with determined that a lot. But depression was hard. had no idea how to even get out of depression. I did what most people typically do is I go to my favorite therapist, which is Google. I just Google a whole bunch of stuff. I Google how to get out of depression, how to get rich, how to heal from a heartbreak. I didn't really hit true depression until I left a 7-year relationship after I graduated college. And then 6 years, one of those. And then that's where I fell into depression. And I didn't know what it looked like. The funny thing is I didn't even know I was depressed until my sister had to call me out like, Bertie, you're never home. It's because I will party from Friday all the way to Sunday and then go to work and repeat that every weekend. And then I finally realized, man, I'm depressed because I've been abusing alcohol. So I abused alcohol for like 3 years. And then I met another girl and I thought that I was healed. But apparently in the middle of a relationship, I learned that I wasn't healed. I was very like clingy. I was very insecure about like her not being with me or us. I was hanging out. And when we broke up, I was again depressed. And then I finally... So I never got out of it. I did self-help books. I Googled, I YouTube, nothing helped. It just actually made me more depressed and more overwhelmed. And then, and I was like 25 at this point, and I just felt like, and I was working my dream job, and I hated my dream job. And then I was like, I also burned bridges with some friends, and I also didn't have a good relationship with my mom. So then I was like, you know what? I need help because I'm not the person that I thought I would be after college because I literally stopped dancing. I hated my job. I stopped getting involved. I was abusing alcohol too much. And then that's when I was like, you know what? I'm gonna use this big chunk of money that I saved up for I don't know for what, but I think I'm gonna have to use it myself. And then bam, that's where I hired my life coach. That was when I actually got out of depression. So if I didn't do that, I don't think I would have ever gotten out of depression.
Yeah, I talk about that because you talk a lot about personal, money, relationship, and social. So that's why I wanted to ask you about that. So how's that all coming along now?
It's great. So I work with my life coach. I think we worked together for 6 months. 12. We were together for 12 months, a year. So the funny thing is that at the end of our session together, we discovered that the reason I was depressed and the reason why I was working so hard, why I was always against, trying to achieve a lot of things at the same time is because one, I was insecure about time, I was insecure about money, and it was my parents. So my parents were constantly reminding me that we are poor, we're immigrants, we don't have enough money, and you're the son, we need money. So I had to work hard to get money. So that's why I always wanted to get that next job. And then time was also because you're young, you need to get married. We don't have money, we're getting old, we might die. So I'm okay. I'm afraid of time. So I had to work fast to get money to provide for my parents because they always say too that so I'll have to take care of the parents as well. So then because of that constant grooming for 25 years, I was insecure about time, money, and my parents. And of course that trickled down to my previous relationships where I'm always like, I demanded like ambitious tasks to my partner and expectations that were like out of this world because it all stemmed from that. But then through all the discovery with my life coach, it just helped me realize like, that's it. Yeah. Jeez. So so that's what I've learned, and it's gotten better, so much better since then. That's great. So I use his teachings to help me cope, and I've gotten a lot better to become a better person. So me, like 3 years ago, is a whole different person for sure, and also 5 years ago too.
Yeah. That's crazy. 3-5 years and 1 decade. See how time changes, I mean, I think my awakening was probably been only maybe about a year or two now, I'd say. And that was when I was like overweight, forgot about myself. I guess you could call that depression too in a state because we don't really realize that until we get past that stage and then we look back and we go, damn, I was actually there during that time because we're not as we don't realize the present tense as it is until we see it in the past. And then we go, damn, that's how it looked like back then. I know for me, it was overweight, being stressed because you have so many kids. You got to hold a job. And now you got to work a different time from your wife to make work-life balance work out. and then you forget about yourself, you forget about your ambitions, you forget about your goals. And I think that's where when we tend too much to other people and you forget to balance the other part of your life, and then because imbalanced, then we fall into something we don't know. It might be depression. It might be other states where we didn't even realize that, and we were living right in that moment, and we didn't even know. You know, it could be cigarettes. It could be something else. I know I used to smoke cigarettes too and stuff like that, but you have to put yourself in the habits that changes you.
Yeah.
And moments, and it could be. I listen to Bedros Koulian a lot, so I'm gonna just mention him right now.
Yeah, go for it.
Bedros Koulian always says change could happen in an instant, and I believe that anything can happen in an instant. I mean, we live life, and life comes at us so fast. It comes just like that, and then we look back and we're like, dang, that happened last year. And then when the memories come back on Facebook, we're like, dang, that happened last year. So when did the life coach? When did you decide you need a life coach then? And then you'd be like, and you weren't the Bert Lee you were now. And you'd be like, I needed this life coach. How did you know you need a life coach? So everybody that listening, they could be like, okay, I think I might need one. And I think my signs kind of look like this. How did you know those signs? And how would you know, okay, I need a life coach to put this straight and do this right?
For me, how I knew was that, you know, to answer this question, I kind of want to piggyback what you were saying to mention is that depression is very true. It happens in many different forms. And you really don't know you're depressed. For some people, you don't know you're depressed because you're in the tense, right? But then when you have surpassed that and you healed, then you will start realizing, oh my gosh, I was depressed. But then there's also one more step where it takes a brave person to reflect, who's willing to go back and actually like detail out why you were depressed, and you did that just fine. Took me a long time. This was not like it happened right away. It actually took me months to be able to go back and be like, oh, I treated this person wrong. I was depressed because of this. I hurt this person, did this. So it takes like a brave person to do that. So if you're listening, depression, you never know, right? It could become all different sizes, but it does take bravery to go back and to admit that you did wrong. So to me, how I kind of started figuring out that I was depressed was, I'm just gonna skip time jump to like 3 years, and so I was depressed for 3 years. I was abusing alcohol for 3 years. I know that because now I look back, but at that time I didn't know. Again, I was partying from like Friday all the way to Sunday. I was never home. I would always like be hungover, slept over my friend's house for 3 years. That's a lot of drinking and bad habits. And I learned that I was using that to avoid, to fill up that missing half of my significant other, that 6-year relationship. It wasn't until my sister, like I mentioned earlier, who called me out and said, Bertie, I'm surprised you're home today. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I giggle. She goes, no, like you're home on a Friday. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? And I'm like, oh man, I need help. And then the real hurdle was that I didn't want to admit it, that I was, not a severe alcoholic, but I was an alcoholic where I drank every week and just needed to have fun. And I'll like get blacked out, I'll puke. And it took me not like a couple more months to finally be like, okay, I need help. I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to raise my hand. And then when I raised my hand, meaning just myself spiritually, and I was like, okay, do I want to go a route of a therapist or a life coach? And at the end of the day, it all depends on your personality. Because me, before my depression and my toxic habits, I was very, I would say, goal-oriented. I needed someone to push me. I needed tasks and goals, very analytical, task-driven. So I knew that a therapist probably wouldn't help because I went to a couple sessions and they ask a lot of like what, how, why. So a lot of questions, which is, it works for some people. But for me, I wanted someone to be like, Bert, you suck. You abuse alcohol. You need to stop doing that. Like to tell me straight up and how to do that. Next week, come back. I want you to do this. Here's some homework to do it. Actually give me homework to hold me accountable. So that's just kind of how I determine my direction. Both still works at the end of the day. Again, it just depends on your nature if you understand yourself too. So that's kind of how I realized I needed a life coach. And I believe in fate and certain coincidences. I was at a dance battle and I was battling this other Asian brother who does not live here. And I was me against him, and he's a tutter. So he goes like, he tuts like this, right? He went. I went first round. He went first round, and he won that battle. I'm like, man, this guy's too good. And then later on, I shook hands with him. I'm like, dude, you're a beast dancer. Like, I love you. Where you from? He's like, I'm from Chicago. I'm like, dude, you're so dope. And we connected on Facebook, and he's a life coach. So that buddy ended up being my life coach. So I worked with him. So he understood me in so many different levels. 1, he was Hmong. 2, he was a dancer. 3, he also got away from the toxic Hmong drinking community. And I'm like, dude, that's what I need. And then, bam, that's how it started. And then 12 years from 12 months after that.
Yeah. How long ago was that again?
That was when I was 25. So I'm 28 now. So like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Bert, you gotta dance a little show for us.
Just imagine me doing some waves, but in my phone, hopefully it can see me do this, you know? Yeah, but I've been dancing for, I would say, like 12 years too.
Wow.
Yeah, for a long
Wow.
time.
So you've been to a lot of competitions too then.
Yes.
Tell us more about those.
A
lot of rave too, or
no raves, like the rave concerts or rave dancing.
Rave dancing concert.
I could do a little bit of rave dancing, but I've never been to a rave concert. I'm actually not that big into like EDMs, raves, or dubstep concerts, but I just appreciate the dance styles though. I've been dancing since middle school. You know, the b-boy days, the breakdancing era. Before everyone started playing volleyball now in sports.
Yeah.
But yeah, I competed. I was a solo dancer for about 3 years, from middle school all the way until high school, senior year. And then this group called Bio Freaks, they recruited me. So it's a team of 7 boys, including me, and we did hip hop, breakdance, flipping tricks, and popping. And then we competed 4 years at the Hmong New Year. We took second place at the Hmong New Year at the Minnesota State Fair. We took second place at the amateur talent contest. And then we went to Chicago. World of Dance is renowned, like world dance competition in Chicago. We got invited to go there, so super amazing. And then again, depression hit, and I quit. I left the group, and then it took me like 4 years for me to go back to dance.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Man, the chapters of life we lived through, right?
Oh yeah.
Let's rewind back a little bit, Bert. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in St. Paul. Are you guys originally from St. Paul?
Yeah,
too?
we are.
Yes, St. Paul.
On White Bear Avenue, Roosevelt Townhomes on Maryland.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the project homes, public housing, Section 8. I lived in government housing for 12 years until I graduated college. So I lived at Roosevelt Townhomes, and then I moved to Frogtown, Rice Street, and then I lived there until my whole entire college year ended, and then I am now living with my brother. We got a house together in South St. Paul. So yeah, I grew up my whole life in the east side.
Yeah.
And then now on the south side.
Yeah.
Yeah, we grew up in the St. Paul area too.
Which area?
And University.
Oh yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
University, Sherburne.
Sherburne.
Oh, how long were you guys there for?
Was. We were there for until we moved to Oakdale in was it 07?
Yeah, I believe so.
Or it must have been. I think it must have been earlier than that.
Wait, yeah, I think I was in the first grade when we moved to Oakdale.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What year was that? You remember that year?
I cannot.
What year did 9/11 happen? I believe that was the year we moved to Oakdale from St. Paul.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so.
We should know the year, but we don't know the year.
We're so
bad
bad.
American citizens. But I was a little kid. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what was going on. You know, but then talking about university, it's changed so much.
It has.
Especially, you know, the businesses there is not the same. It's a lot of rundown business I've seen. Because I moved to university when I was in middle school, and I, you know, will sometimes, you know, skip school to just be around university and go to their stores or go to hometown right there.
Exactly.
But now it's very, very different.
It's very different.
So, Bert, talk a little bit about Bert Lee Speaks. I know you can provide a lot of information to the community. I know you're a speaker, coacher. You do 90-day programs. Can you talk a little bit more about those?
Yes. So Bert Lee Speaks evolved from my speaking passion, But then as I started, my business diving into self-work, I found that, I also love designing. And a lot of the time when I work with clients, they always say they want to speak their truth. They want to sound authentic. They want to find their own voice. So I'm like, you know what? Let me make speaks into a broader section of more than just speaking engagements. So then speaking, Bert Lee Speaks is really more of me thinking that I'm betting on myself. I mean, maybe eventually, I say 5 years from now or 10 years from now, if my business grows, I might change the name. But for now, I'm betting on myself because I believe in myself. I believe I could do things. So let me just put my name out there as Bert Lee and it speaks until what I call personal brand. People recognize me, recognize what Bert Lee Speaks stands for, and then eventually that slowly transitions into I would say Speaks Media, whatever it can be. Yeah. But for now, I'm betting on my name, myself, because everyone out there, you are a brand yourself. You are a whole ass attitude, personality, characteristic. So brand yourself, brand your name. You are a person. Yeah. So hopefully, me doing this, people also see that they can do it as well. It's you don't need a business entity to start business. You can't just be the business. If you have something to offer, a skill to offer, then you just be the business. That's what I'm doing. That's how I started Bert Lee Speaks, is because, I'm just going to bet myself. I know that I can speak, I could design. Let me just put that on the forefront. And then slowly I just learned different skills of how to become a public speaker. And then I took my 7 years in advertising to start my design coaching business. And now I'm taking, because I work with big corporations like General Mills, Target, Walmart, to now working with smaller businesses and entrepreneurs, because I've learned that the languages and the techniques that I learned from the big guys, the young guys, the small guys like us, they the gap is so big. And I'm like, that's crazy how the gap is so big. Yeah. But then the steps that they do is so simple. But the thing is that a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, it's so simple, so they get scared or they never seen it work. So then they don't know how the inside works. So that's why it's kind of scary for them.
So what is the missing gaps?
The missing gap is that they're afraid to spend money, even if it's $800 or $1,000, right? Because when I work with General Mills or Walmart and Target, they will put $1,000 on just one single ad, and then or they put $1,000 to buy merch, influencers, and just do that, right? So they can use $1,000 in 3 different ways. But small business owners, they're $1,000, they want to keep that, they don't want to use it. But for experts like me in the summit, we teach you how to use that $1,000 and put it out there. It's just kind of like real estate investing. If you get into that, $1,000 can go a lot of places in real estate that's tangible. But for digital, it could go to a social post, content creation, email list, influencer, so many ways. All you need is really just $500 or $1,000. So that's kind of the biggest gap, is that diversify your money, and you don't need to just focus that on just one, a logo or a website, because it's expensive. $5,000 for a website, you can use $5,000 to grow your business without a website. So that's the biggest missing gap, is just the knowledge of how to use money digitally to grow your business.
So how many Hmong businesses have you incorporate that aspects into?
2, 3. I helped a yoga instructor build her brand and understand her create content. And so in branding, it's not marketing, it's not advertising. I don't take your money to advertise. That's a marketer's job, and that's also an advertiser's job. So branding is its own different sector. So what I do teach is I teach you how to create content. And if you have a really good content and you want to put ads or money into that, then I can coach you on how to do it, or who you could go to. But I'm not the expert of this is the statistics, this is the number, this is the target audience, right? So that's not my forte, but I just know enough to this could be it, but go to an expert, right? So then I help her incorporate her brand. So what I do is I help businesses incorporate their brand, meaning how do they sound like? How do they show up? When I hear your business, what do I think of? Give me your one sentence purpose. A brand is not just a mission. You need what I call it. You need an insight, why people should hire you. You need your audience, who you're talking to. You need a brand personality. Why do I want to partner with you as another business owner? So you need all these different steps, because when you create an ad or when you talk about yourself, you already have it all set. Because I've talked to so many business owners who I work with, they just know their mission. But then I'm like, okay, why should I hire? And they're like, they started a lot, right? So I've helped a yoga instructor. I've helped 2 real estate individuals start their brand so that they stand out from a saturated market. And then aside from those small business owners, I've also helped like a pottery shop to get more engagements and sign up for the classes through content strategy planning stuff. Okay.
What about so I know you got a package deal here, right? And it's the brand starter kit. Is that what it is?
Yes.
So if there's a business or a company that reaches out to you, how does this all work out? So they be like, maybe I'm gonna go sign up with Bert now.
Yeah. How I do it is it depends on what you're looking for, because I could say no too, because I could be like, I think you don't need me. I think you're surpassed me.
Right.
So the brand starter kit, I'm switching up a little bit now. So it's a 6-month coaching session with me where I help you build your brand. Let's say that you've been in the business for, let's say, 3 years. You have a logo, you have a mission, you have like a slight audience, but then you don't have an online presence, or you have a small online presence, but you're not noticeable. Then that's where I come in. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me build you your brand. Let's take your mission. Let's break it apart into 6 steps, like your insight, your strategy, your audience, your purpose, who you're serving, your service. And then once you have that done, then let's brand your Facebook page. Give it visuals, give it cues where so when people see that, they know who it is. Because a branding is also, if I just see a picture, I don't need a logo on it. I don't need any verbiage. I know that that's your guys. That's the pieces, right? So I help you from there. If you already have all of that, then I think you might need like a new logo, or you just need consultation. So it's different. So I usually work with veterans who are in 3 years, who has some sort of establishment but just needs that little push, or even just beginners. I worked with the real estate agents, realtors. They have their brokers designs, but then that's not their own, right? So they're like, okay, I want to be different. So that's where we start from scratch, and it's still an amazing turnout too. Yeah,
that's great. What about a few pointers for the pieces then?
For the pieces,
what are you seeing? Where you're like, oh, hey brothers, y'all need to do this.
I love your logo. What I always tell business owners is that look at your logo at 3 different sizes. Make it small, like your messenger picture. If I can't read that, then it's not legible. Make it big. Of course, we're all going to see that. But the best logo is if you go small, like the messenger picture, you can still read it, then that's a great logo. If you can't read it, then you have to like move certain things out. You have to make something more simpler. It might be too busy. So that would be my advice is the pieces. I love it, but it like, what's that one thing that we can identify? Oh, I see that. Oh, that's the pieces.
That's awesome. That's $1,000.
Yeah, that's $1,000 consultation right there. Yeah. Oh, one thing that I want to add to that too is that a lot of times I did this myself as a designer, because when I was working my full-time job, I was freelancing on the side, and I just needed quick cash. I would just design quick logos. But now that I've started my own business, I've seen that like every time I design a logo for a business owner, they get really happy because it's a shiny object, but then they get bored of it and they don't ever use it again. So I feel like, okay, that's kind of also the inspiration of me. You know what? Let me teach them how to brand, because that's what I did for 7 years. But now that I don't do that anymore, let me actually take what I've learned and teach business owners. So when you get a logo, what I coach you through and I do for you is I give you 4 different logos of the same version, but like they're broken out different ways, meaning so you can use it and apply in different ways, like on a t-shirt, on a pin, on a business card, on a Facebook profile picture. Because if you just have one logo, then you try to put it into certain areas like water bottle, you won't be able to read it, but you get 4 different versions so that you can apply it different ways. So that's one thing that a lot of businesses don't think about, is when you get a logo, make sure you at least get 4 versions. If you get just one, then you won't be able to use that a lot of ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. So I see on the website here you got phase 1 and phase 2, and phase 2 is more of the training work, right? So phase 1 is you going in and doing the gut work, and then phase 2 is handing over to the business. how does all that work, and explain that a little bit. So when they go and look at it, they'll be like, oh, that makes more sense now.
Yeah. So for phase 1 of you and I working together through brand building, I say to brand building starts with you. It may sound corny, but really it is you. Like, because the business stands for your idea first. And then, when you get used to saying, my business is this because I serve people of color. And then eventually you just switch the I to we serve people of color. We sell bakeries that do, that transport food to you in like 5 minutes. Or we create, I bake goods for your birthday parties. Instead of that, we bake goods for your birthday parties. Because it starts with you first and you change to we. So I have to help them identify their values, what they value, and then what they envision their lifestyle and their business together. And at times they're kind of hesitant because they're like, well, how does this work later? And then when we get to phase 2, I'm like, remember when you worked on your values? We're gonna take that phase 2, man, that's your business. And they're like, oh shit, that's my business. Because when you have employees, because branding is all about team building. When you bring in people, they are not investing in an entity. They are investing in you, but they don't know that, because that's how you can tell, like, oh, you're going to be a good fit because you believe in my company's values, but really you believe in my values, right? So if you don't believe in my values, then I'm not going to want you on my team. So we take that. So we just kind of like flip it over and we start changing the dialogue. And then once we have that, then we start digging deeper into, okay, what's your service? What's your business purpose? And then we wordsmith. So I help you wordsmith a lot of your writings to sound very enticing, giving you that sexy magazine headline. Because that's what I did for advertising. Advertising is all about the sexy headline. So I help you write all that. Phase 2, and then phase 3 is where we finally get to the shiny objects, which is graphics, logos, Facebook templates, and all that. A lot of clients, they want to get to that first. I'm like, no, we can't, because if you do that, then you're just gonna be wasting your time. But you gotta first do the homework, because when you do the homework, it's gonna make it so much easier to do the designing part. Because then we already know what you like, what you want to look like, how you sound like, and it makes visual a lot easier to do.
Well, after all those are done, do you catch up with your customers too after the few months or so?
I usually wait until 3 months. Because they're on their own, to check back to see like how they are doing, how are there any results, are there any branding questions? Because I told them I'm always there. When you build a team, it's always nice to have like a lawyer, an accountant, to feel safe. But as for business owners, it's very powerful and efficient to have a designer on your team, a videographer, a production manager, whatnot. But especially if you have a designer on your team, it makes your life so much easier, because you come to me for like a logo resize free of charge. You can come to me for file sizes. Oh, can I get copyrighted because of this? Or how much does it cost to create a website? Like, so much efficient. It's just kind of like, when you're doing business, you have a lawyer. It's so much safer. As a designer, you have a designer who you also can get tricked by other designers. Or for example, if I create you my brand and you can't afford me that month for that year, then you go to a different designer and you just give them everything I created you. And for them, it makes the job so much easier, and it will be a lot cheaper because they don't have to start from scratch.
Be sure to reach out to Bert, though.
That's enticing. So how is the BrandVault? Let's talk about the BrandVault Summit then a little bit, since we already touched base on the starter kit that you have. So the BrandVault Summit, looks like you guys have it planned so that each one of you guys has a workshop, right?
Yes.
So when somebody signs up for that, what are they expecting, and what are they going to get out of it?
Yes. So when me and Christian sat down together, we were very intentional on who we wanted and very intentional on how to structure the presentation. Is that we've been to so many conferences where people get to breakout rooms and they learn from one person, but they can't learn from the other person, right? Or they get exhausted, or the other presenter, because we're also on the presenter side. One presenter might not have enough people. So we also understand that our time is valuable and we're experts. So we're doing it in a bootcamp style where everyone's in one room. We get like 15-minute breakout sessions, sessions to relax and do, and then come back in one room. So there's 4 of us, and we want to tell a story from when you build your business to the end of your business. So first, I'm the first one up. I talk about branding. What is a brand? When should you start building a brand? You start at the beginning, right when you start that business proposal, that business plan. Start your branding. And then secondly, when you have a brand, you have your graphics, your logos, what do you got to do next? You got to show up. You got to create content. That's where Nini comes in. She's going to teach you how to create content for yourself or for your business. And then what do you do after you have content? You have to start selling. And bam, that's where Elizabeth comes in. She tells you how to leverage your content to sell, and then how to be a salesperson on like Messenger and stuff. And yes, you will have to sell if you are starting, or even if you have been a vet for 3 years, you have to sell here and there. So that's where Elizabeth comes in. But then this is all social. And then lastly, when you have a great brand, you have great content, you know how to sell, what's next? You got to scale. You got to grow your business. That's where Christian comes in. Marketing, how do you use ads? How do you advertise? How do you expand so that it works for you while you grow your team? So we were very intentional on this story. So from the beginning to the end, brand build, great content, how to sell. Lastly, expand on ads, how to market yourself doing that. So that's like the full story. So that's all in one day and 4 hours, 15-minute sessions. You got to be there.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm going there for sure.
You guys have to be there. Otherwise, you guys are spending hundreds of hours on YouTube because I did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Now everything, like I said, everything's gonna be in the palm of your hands. But now everything's gonna be in like a little pie section here. You just gulp it all at one time.
And you get to learn from the true professionals too. Number 1, Bert right here too.
Thank you.
So, Bert, how long you been speaking? How long you been doing that speaking gig?
Man, I've been speaking for about, I would say, 5 years. So I started in college as a senior year in college. So English, of course, is not my first language. I stuttered. I didn't have a severe stutter, but green stutter, And I would get shy. My face would turn red. And the reason why I don't stutter now is because practice. I was insecure about my speaking and being in front of people, so I would literally just pick up books or newspaper just to read, to enunciate words so I could become better at reading in front of the class when I get caught out, right? When that happens. And then eventually I kind of I found this book called The Tao of Badass. So it's all about pickup games. So it's written by, I think, Josh something. It doesn't exist anymore. He talked about how to pick up girls, how to read body language, and how to have flirty lines. So I was really into that, right? Because I was 16 and 17, and then I read that book. I was really into it, and until I graduated high school, I was like, let me take what I've learned into my my language is speaking, and so I took those flirting body language techniques into speaking body language techniques. And in my senior year in college, my professor was like, hey, do you want to host a public speaking class just because I feel like you're good at it? I'm like, what? Okay. So then I took everything I learned from that book to my own techniques, and I taught it to the students. It was only like 20 people in that room. And they all loved it. They're like, what? That's so cool. I've never done that. I'm like, those are all flirting techniques. But it worked. So I'm like, you know what? Let me continue doing this. And then literally after that workshop, I hosted a public speaking workshop every Friday for 1 month of August. Every Friday at the Peking Garden at our university. It used to not be that. I forgot what it used to be called. But I will host
My Village or something?
In My Village, yeah. I will, because they have a back room of like dining hall.
That's where you got all them girls at?
No, that's where I hosted my workshop because I was like, hey, I need a space. So I hosted at the back of a restaurant. Because, I'm broke. I'm a college student. And I'm like, I did that. So I did that for a whole month. Really good turnouts for like their first, second workshops. And after that, it's trickling down, but came back up. But overall, all the people who came, they learned a lot and they loved it. And then I joined Toastmasters. I did a couple of speech competitions, won a couple. I really enjoyed that. And then, you know what? Let me take you to the big stage. I took it. My first paid speaking gig was River Falls, and they paid me, I think, $800. I was like, holy shit, $800. I'm getting paid to speak. Okay, bet. So I went. I spoke for 1 hour, told my story. Saw a bunch of people sleeping. A bunch of people liked it, for sure. And then when I left, I was like, I think I kind of bombed, meaning bad, because people in front row were sleeping.
Yeah.
But then eventually, like,
All the girls didn't sleep though.
I don't know. I think so. I hope not. I couldn't really see. It was dark. But then afterwards, a family came and said they appreciated my story because I talked about my mom and my dad and their journey from Laos to America. And then I told about how my mom lost her family. And then I also talked about how I hated my parents. Yeah. And then I got more of the students coming talking how they appreciate it. And then the students who brought me on appreciate it. So I'm like, let me make this let me try doing this a full-time thing. And that's just the start of my speaking business. Yeah.
So you talk a lot about your parents during speaking too. How's the relationship now?
Good. My relationship now is way better than it was before. Mostly my mom. So my dad, he's a quiet guy. He doesn't really say much, but when he does, it's scary. But my mom,
typical Hmong dad, right?
Yeah. So my mom, she like always lectures me and is on me all the time. So my relationship with her, I hated her beliefs. I hated her ideal version of me, of how she wanted me to become. So me and her were always butt heads all the time. I never understood why she wanted me to be a perfect son. I never understood why I had to take care of them. I hated our tradition and our culture too. I didn't really appreciate it. And then but that was because I was, egotistic as a son. And then I burned a couple bridges with her, a couple conversations until I healed from a life coach. And it also took a lot of bravery from my end to understand myself first, because when I understood my values and where I stood, and then when I went to my mom, whatever she believed in, she came at me, it was like blah blah, it was bouncing off. So I was like, hey, I'm actually not mad, I'm okay. So that's when I was able to have civil conversations with her. That's when I was able to challenge her insecurities and vulnerabilities more. I remember one specific conversation, I asked my mom, why is it that if one of my nephews gets married and I can't get married the same year, and then she goes, or one of my uncle's kids, and they're like, well, because we're the same pot, so you can't do that spiritually. I'm like, okay, well, who taught you guys that? And my mom goes, well, I remember our family, they did it. I'm like, but that's the family, but like, who told them that? My mom goes, I don't know who told them that. And I'm like, so then how did this come up? And she goes, it just happened because of experience and family and stuff. I'm like, but what if it's just about bad luck? And what if that individual just wasn't good at money or was just a bad person? My mom goes, yeah, but why asking so much questions? So she got irritated. I mean, I understood. I was just wanted to test her those questions. Yeah. Because I like to dig deep. So me and my mom's relationship, we're actually in really good terms. She calls me a lot just to vent to me. I'm definitely her favorite person to call to go do stuff for her. And she says she likes calling me because my other siblings don't pick up her calls. Yeah, I just started doing that, so I'm like, you know what, it's mom. So
I think that's something that you can talk about too, and get the younger generations to understand that the gap that you went through too, because of the generational gap. And I think that's something that you should talk about too.
Yeah, as I been speaking to college students in high school for the past 5 years now, I have changed my story and narrative about my mom, because as I've healed with her, I've started to learn the bad parts and the good parts. So I definitely do talk about, like, I don't talk to them about what I just shared, which I shared to be a good bit for a story. Yeah. But I do talk about, like, only the bad parts. I only talk about how I hate her and like how it ruined our relationship. But I should definitely talk more like how it healed afterwards. So,
because that's something that the Hmong community is difficult.
Yeah, Bert, what about I know we're gonna touch base outside of the branding a little bit, so you guys get to know Bert on a personal level too. So Bert, when did that mindset change in and be like, okay, I'm gonna be the new version of myself? When did the Bert 1.0 become the Bert 2.0?
It was after my life coach and I session for 12 months. He made me realize that I was insecure about myself for the wrong reasons. And once I understood why I was insecure, I was able to lock on that.
Yeah.
And then of course I have models, role models. Like I look up to my dad, and I have, people I follow like Anthony O'Neill, Simon Sinek, Van Gogh. They were my inspirations. So when I see that, I kind of like see myself, okay, how do I become like them? Or what are they doing that makes them successful?
Yeah.
And how can I try doing that?
Yeah.
So then I just, started getting to know more people. Once I expand my network to better people who are into entrepreneurships, who are into business, then that made me feel like, you know what, I want to have my own business one day. And all those curiosity that I have, so I've learned to ask a lot of questions, and what I call is beautiful questions. Because as a kid, my dad, my mom used to hate how I asked a lot of questions. I talked a lot, but I took that power to actually control it, where I can ask questions. So I did a lot of coffee grabs, a lot of fail, a lot of embarrassing ones. But then eventually, out of those fails and a lot of those, I got like 1, 2, 3, 4 people who were like, you asked a lot of great questions. You're gonna go far, and I just stay connected. And then they pushed me to become who I am today. The questions I asked back then pushed me to who I became today. So it was a lot of zigzag. It's not one linear path. It was like a lot of YouTube, books, networking, cousins, uncles, friends. So it was a lot of them that made me realize, I want to be my 2.0.
Yeah.
Bert, you have a lot of great experience that you went through. And what is the future holding for you? Plans for the future?
Man,
it's gonna be Bert 4.0 now, right?
Yeah. I don't even know a generic answer. Meaning, I for sure want to expand my services for speaking and coaching, designing. So I want to expand myself to a team. But for my speaking business, I want to speak to more college students, to more colleges, to really push on them the conversation on vulnerability and entrepreneurship and thought leadership. Because every time I talk to the students about vulnerability, they feel so amazed and they feel like they're not alone. And sometimes counselors and teachers are so focused on academics and professionalism that they forget that their students are also humans. So I come in with like, hey, they're more than just achievers and doers. They have hobbies. They are vulnerable. They are people too. So I come with that expression and that conversation. I pitch that all the time. So I want to do more of that to as many school with one keynote as I can. And for my designing, I just want to educate business owners like, hey, don't just have a business, have a brand, because no one cares about a logo in a business. But people like me and you care because we are business people, but your customers, they don't know what the heck a business plan is. They don't know the story behind your logo, but they do know a good brand. They are loyal to a good purpose, a good mission. So that's why I just want to push that out there. It's like, as soon as you start a business, start thinking about brand. Like, how do you show up? How do you look like? Right.
Awesome.
So that's my future. So I don't have a concrete thing yet, but yeah, to expand on that.
That's great.
How about I know this wasn't on what we wanted to kind of vision and talk about, but I felt like you pushed through a barrier in which a lot of people can use information to push through their barriers. How did you know that you wanted to become the new Bert or something like that, right? Because for a lot of people, they get stuck and they just be like, I'm comfortable. I'll just be this person right now. How did you come to realize it'd be like, I wanted to be the new Bert? And it's like, because a lot of people, it seems like a lot of people at like standstill and just comfortable with it. I know I was at that standstill for like plenty of years. And I was just content with it. Until I found the real push. I know it might come back to your life coach again. But then even some people, even if they go through a life coach, the life doesn't change. Or like
that's
that.
very
true.
true.
It really takes a true individual too.
And
how did it take that true individual and you to push through that?
I think it was this might sound bad, but it was jealousy of other people succeeding. So I'm not. It had to do with my life coach, but I'm not gonna talk so much now. But because I did my self-discovery, if I didn't do that, I would have took that jealousy and really hurt myself and say that I'm not enough. I suck. That person's too great. I give up. But because I did do the work, I did the hard work. I took that jealousy into like, you know what? if that person is succeeding, how can I be like that person? And how can I not use that into a dark, like, jealousy moment, but like, what did they do? So for example, when I see a good podcast, for example, Christian, or when I meet other singers, artists, or real estate, like trying them, I see them doing good. I get a sense of like jealousy, like, man, I'm so jealous because of them. Oh God, they're so lucky. But I take that and I'm like, okay, how did they get there? And so what I've done is actually, that's why when I see someone that I'm jealous of, I know that that's the person that I got to talk to. So when I feel jealous of Christian, I went and talked to him. And bam, here's what happened, Summit. And I feel jealous of Chai. Chai. I did one-on-one interview with him. And then I went onto his podcast, the Monk Hustlers. And then I was jealous of Elizabeth. And I was like, you know what? She's doing something great. I hired her as my business coach. Nini, I was jealous because she has so many followers. I'm like, man, how do you have so many followers? I got her on my summit just because I was like, if I'm jealous of someone, they have something that I don't, and instead of like just beating myself up, I've learned to, okay, let me actually just go talk to that person and pick the brains. And every single time I've done that, so that's how I think that was my turning point of like, you know what, that person is a 2.0, man, I gotta be 2.0 too. So it's kind of like using that jealousy. For me, I used it to my advantage to actually, that also helped me like force to meet new people. It's kind of like what people say, FOMO, fear of missing out. But I just can't use that too much, otherwise I do get like stuck, or I do get like very insecure. But so it's very I'm still learning how to use that too.
It's kind of like you turn a dark light into a bright light.
Yeah. But previously I would get like very, like, I would get like jealous, or I would like compare myself so much where I'm like, man, how I can never be that person. But because I did the hard work again, it led me to pivot that mindset.
That's how you strive, right?
Yeah.
So what about that? We always leave with the one piece of advice for our followers, because I know there's that one piece that Bert lives by that made Bert. So can you provide that for our followers?
Yes. Just do it and figure it out later. I'll give you a quick context with that real quick. So for my speaking business, I was talking to Genesis Works. It was a college prep program. They were looking for speakers, and they liked me as a speaker because I spoke with them before. And they're like, hey, Bert, you know, we like, the students loved you before, but we want to work with you. Could you go home and write us a proposal to see if you're a good fit? And I was like, okay. So I went home. I had no idea how to write a proposal. So I called my sister. I had her help me. I YouTube, I Google, but they wanted it like in 3 days. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to write proposal. I've never written one before for a speaking engagement. So I just YouTube, Google, use different templates, mash it up. And the deal was $15,000. And I'm like, this is not gonna go through. Like it did not look. When I was looking at other people, I'm like, man, this looks so lame. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna do it. I'll figure it out later, right? So I did. I said yes to her. And then I figured it out later. I mean, I talked to my sister, YouTube, Google, everything. And I submitted it 3 days later. So nervous. And then I got it. I got that $15,000 deal. I actually started working with them already in August. So it was actually for this year. So going back to do it now, figure it out later. Meaning if you have an investment you want to do, say yes. You will figure it out later. Anything in life too, you know, like if you wait, then you might miss it. And I'm sure when you say yes, you know, you will figure it out later because that urges you to have to figure it out later.
That's great context. Even if it's a $15 million deal, right, Bert?
Yeah. $15 million deal.
Right. But you never know. It's going to lead you to it or something, right? Because everything's a building block. Everything's a building block.
And a lot of big corporations, they do that. Like a salesman says, yes. Later on, they're like, okay, now I got to find 5 people. And that's why it's so hard to always get to the CEO or to like get something going. It's because they say yes and they figure it out later. Yeah.
So thank you again, Bert, for coming on to the show. For our audiences, make sure you guys like this podcast if you guys got information from it. Or if you guys want this more future content with Bert here, you know, and reach out to Bert. Okay, www.bertleespeaks.com, and I'll link the comment below. And don't forget about the BrandVault Summit on September 16th. Y'all, if you guys are trying to grow your brand or your own personal brand or your business brand, and looking for content creation ideas or something like that. I know like all the TikTokers and all Instagram influencers and that. Make sure you guys reach out to Bert too. And maybe he'll give you guys a discount or something.
Yeah, let's talk, man. Let's talk.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you for coming out,
thank
and
you,
all
thank
of
you.
our followers, and we love you all. Thank you all.